The phone didn't ring, of that I'm certain. Casually picking up my device, I scrolled through the notifications. Like most people across North America, I find myself checking my phone every 15 minutes for the tiny thrill that comes with seeing a new text or message. What caught me off guard was the notification of a missed call from 20 minutes earlier. My phone had been sitting right in front of me the entire time, and it was hard to ignore the loud, unmistakable ping it makes for incoming alerts. The idea that I missed my ringtone, an ironically chosen tune of Natalie Imbruglia's Torn, was strange. Assuming it was just another spam call, I checked the details and was surprised to see it was from a local area code and even had a name attached, Edith Vale. That was unusual. Normally, scam calls with ominous warnings about Interpol or threats of jail time, unless I paid up using a shady e-transfer, came from anonymous sources. But this was different. It had a name, Edith Vale. Even though I figured it was likely spam, a small voice in the back of my head whispered, "What if?" I had been handing out my music business cards, a slightly embarrassing move, while playing small gigs and opening for newer artists. Maybe it was someone reaching out. So, with a mix of curiosity and caution, I decided to call back. After a few rings, the call was answered. "Hello?" came a voice, sounding a bit uneasy. Curious. Was that an older woman? "Hi," I replied hesitantly. "I noticed I had a missed call from this number about 20 minutes ago." "Oh, did you know?" I'm so sorry," she began, her tone hoarse and weathered. "Definitely an older woman. It must have been a mistake, dear." I let it slide. Smartphones can be tricky, even for me. As tempted as I was to ask if she had ever encountered TikTok, to see how she'd react, I decided to keep it short. "No problem at all. Have a great day." "Thank you, sweetheart," she said warmly. Then, just as I was about to end the call, she quickly added, "I was trying to reach my husband, you see." "Yes, that's it. He must have a number very close to yours." "Oh, I see," I said, still poised to hang up. "Probably just a digit off. Happens all the time." Yes, exactly. I dialed your number instead of his. "Thank you for being so kind about this." "Not an issue," I said, ending the call before the conversation spiraled into more of her epiphanies. Like the fact that calling me meant she wasn't calling someone else. As much as I teased her in my head, I found the interaction unexpectedly sweet. That thought resurfaced a week later when her name popped up on my caller ID, and Torn once again accompanied me. "Yes, it's a great song. Don't judge me." "Hello," I answered. Edith paused, seemingly surprised, before responding. "Wait, you're not Robert." "Nope. Looks like another wrong number." The realization dawned on her slowly. "Ah, you must be the same woman I spoke to last time. Your voice is so clear." "Yep, that's me again." "Well, my goodness. You must be so annoyed with me calling you by mistake again." "Not at all, ma'am. It's all good. I hope you reach who you're looking for." "Oh, well, this time, it's not my husband. It's my brother I'm trying to reach." "Got it. Best of luck," I said, cutting her off mid-sentence to end the call. Felt rude, but sometimes you have to set boundaries before things drag on. Whether it's a telemarketer or a stranger on the street asking for just a moment of your time, the trick is to stop it early. Otherwise, you end up trapped in a never-ending conversation. Later that night, it struck me as odd that Edith had called me again. First, it was her husband. Now, it was her brother. Did we all have strikingly similar numbers? I dismissed the thought and went on with my evening. 2 weeks passed without another call, and I assumed she had moved on, too. The third time, it seemed, was indeed the charm, though this time Edith's return was more irritating than anything else. At around 2 a.m., I caught the tail end of my ringtone playing. Groggily, I got up just as the ringing stopped and checked my phone. Edith again. Only it wasn't just a single missed call this time. It was 20. She had been trying to reach me for over an hour, and somehow I had slept through all of it. Frustrated, I blocked her number and went back to sleep. The next morning, I noticed she'd also left several voicemails. Out of a mix of curiosity and annoyance, I decided to listen. I expected the usual ramblings about her day. A frustrating trip to the bank, complaints about overpriced oranges at the supermarket, or lamenting over not reaching her husband or brother again. Instead, each voicemail was identical. Just the sound of her breathing. One after another, continuous recordings of her breath, some lasting minutes before cutting off and transitioning to the next. Occasionally, it seemed like she was on the verge of crying, but she never actually did. What in the world? I couldn't decide whether to be disturbed or to feel pity. Either way, I rationalized it as her being clueless about technology. Maybe she didn't understand the meaning of "leave your message after the beep." Then again, answering machines had existed long before voicemail, so it was baffling how she had missed all of that. Still, I clung to my flimsy explanation to put the matter out of my mind. With her number blocked, the next few months went by uneventfully. Life returned to normal. Sure, I get an occasional unsettling thought about Edith's late-night calls, but the busyness of everyday life helped me move past it. Then, one ordinary day, my phone rang. Thinking it was my friend, someone I was actually expecting a call from, I grabbed my phone. My heart nearly stopped when I saw the name Edith Vale flash across the screen. How had she bypassed the block? My confusion gave way to clarity when I realized this wasn't the same number. It was completely different from a new area code. She had changed numbers to contact me. I answered, irritated. "I don't know what your deal is, but stop calling me. I'm completely alone," she interrupted. Her sudden, quiet declaration threw me off. "I'm alone," she repeated. "I heard you. My husband, my brother, my family, and my friends, they've all passed. I have no one. I'm completely isolated." "Look, I'm sorry to hear that, but that doesn't make this okay. I just need someone to talk to. Please, one meaningful conversation, and I promise you'll never hear from me again." Against my better judgment, secretly, I was more irritated at the possibility that Edith had children, grandchildren, or extended family who had abandoned her to navigate her grief alone. "Sometimes, it feels like I've always been alone," she began. "Yet, I have memories of when life was full, filled with company, laughter, and liveliness. I can even remember moments where I felt almost overwhelmed by socializing, like the presence of others was too much to bear." "You don't say," I replied dryly. "What a foolish thought that was in hindsight," she mused, her voice fading into contemplation. I decided to multitask. I had a concert later that evening, so I put her on speakerphone while getting ready. Setting my phone on the bathroom counter, I started applying makeup in front of the mirror. "I'm sure looking back brings mixed feelings," I said. "I'm sorry to hear you feel so alone. Don't you have any old friends or extended family you can talk to?" "No. Everyone I cared about is gone." "That's awful," I responded. Trying to pivot the conversation, I asked, "Have you considered making new friends? Or maybe reconnecting with your kids or grandkids?" "I've tried. My kids don't answer." "That's tough," I replied, switching angles. "But what about making new friends?" "Oh yes, I'd love that." "That's good," I said, though something about her response felt off. A chill ran up my spine like an unseen boundary inside me had been crossed. It's hard to describe, but it left me uneasy. Shaking it off, I continued, "I hope you find a way to feel empowered to make new connections and to live a fulfilling life. Even in tough circumstances, you should never give up on finding happiness." Man, I was really leaning on every cliche in the book today. Never. Not in a million years. I've always been determined, Edith declared with a surprising intensity. "I've never given up hope on living a good and meaningful life. Not once. Not ever." I tried to keep up with her words, but something strange caught my attention in the mirror. My free hand was moving slowly through my hair in an odd, almost tender way. What was I doing? I forced my arm to relax and returned to applying concealer under my eyes. But every time I feel a glimmer of hope, I sink back into sadness, she continued. "Losing your family is the most unbearable thing." "I'm so sorry to hear that," I said, and I genuinely meant it. "It happened in a horrific accident," she explained. "We were all in the car. My brother was driving, and he got distracted for just a moment. At the same time, another driver made a reckless move. It was like a perfectly tragic coincidence, a cosmic mistake. Two fleeting lapses that created something awful." I realized I was caressing my cheek. Why was I doing that? Sure, my skin was nice, but it wasn't exactly a habit of mine to keep touching it. Once again, I forced my hand back to a resting position. "I'm truly sorry. So, just to be clear, that accident is how you lost your brother." "Everyone," she replied. "My brother was driving with his wife beside him. In the back seat were me, my husband, and my sister. Jesus, that's horrible. Sorry, excuse my language," I said, caught off guard. I can't imagine surviving something like that and having to keep going after losing everyone close to you. She didn't respond for a moment, just breathed softly. It must have been painful to revisit all of that. I figured we were going too deep, and it was time to wrap things up. Honestly, I wasn't even sure this conversation was helping her anymore. "It's a void," she finally said. "Yeah, I get that," I responded, trying to tread carefully. "I mean, I've lost people too, and it does feel like a hole in your life, like a void that's just there. But, we don't have to go further into it." The involuntary movements started to really unnerve me now. One moment, I was standing upright, swiping on lipstick. The next, I found myself hunched over the sink, my face almost pressed against the mirror, staring into my own eyes. It was time to end the call. "I'm so sorry for everything you've gone through," I said firmly. "I really hope you find some peace. But I need to go now if that's okay." She ignored my attempt to close the conversation. When the crash happened, she began, her voice low and chilling. I felt my skull crack and my spine snap. Blood filled my mouth, choking me as the rest of my body was mangled. And yet, I was alive, far longer than I should have been. The pain lasted for so long. "Okay, I'm done here," I muttered, but something stirred inside me. My hands were clasping each other tightly, almost violently. Yet I wasn't doing it. "Easy now. I can feel you," Edith said softly, her voice eerily calm. "Stay on the line a little longer. I'm almost there." I tried to move, but my body felt heavier by the second. My head swam with a strange, blooming sensation. "I'm so grateful you kept answering my calls," she continued, her tone now rapid and intense. "This has all been leading to something. I'm almost there, almost fully inside of you. And you're so young, so vibrant. I can already imagine all the friends I'll make, the memories I'll create, the life I'll live. Everything will have meaning again. Even through the pain, it's all worth it." Her words echoed in my head as I struggled to unclasp my hands and hang up the phone. My teeth clenched as I fought to speak. "Get the hell out of my body," I growled. A primal instinct kicked in, and I smashed my head against the mirror. The glass shattered, but the oppressive feeling didn't fade. My hands remained tightly bound as if by an invisible force. "What a selfish thing to do to my body," Edith shrieked. I didn't wait for her to say more. I slammed my head against the wall again and again, desperate to break free. Her voice croaked faintly through the phone, but I kept going. With all the strength I had left, I struck my head against the bathroom counter. The pain was blinding, and for a moment, I thought I'd caused irreversible damage to myself. But I didn't care. A fierce determination surged within me. I would rather destroy myself than let her take over. Her presence seemed to weaken slightly as her voice came through the phone. "You're a vessel," Edith said, her tone almost reproachful. "Why can't you just be grateful for that?" I felt myself teetering on the edge of unconsciousness. Whether it was from the head trauma I'd inflicted or something deeper threatening to overwhelm me, I wasn't sure. Summoning every ounce of strength left in me, I stood and brought my head crashing down onto the counter where the phone rested. The impact knocked both the phone and me. Adrenaline coursed through my veins, giving me a fleeting moment of clarity. I scrambled toward the phone, frantically tapping through the screens, ignoring the pounding in my head. Just as Edith's voice was about to emerge again, I managed to end the call. Jesus Christ. It's over. I lay on the bathroom floor, screaming into the void, releasing everything pent up inside me. The screaming grew louder when, to my horror, Natalie Imbruglia's Torn played again. Another incoming call. Caller ID Edith Vale. I hung up immediately, but another call came. And another. And another. The interruptions were relentless, each call coming from a different number before I could even reject the previous one. Panicking, I bolted to the hallway closet and grabbed my toolbox. I ripped it open, pulled out a hammer, and ran back to the bathroom. Without hesitation, I smashed my Samsung Galaxy S23 into pieces. Even after the phone was utterly destroyed, I kept pounding the hammer into the bathroom floor, expelling every ounce of frustration and anguish. Eventually, I stopped. I stood there, breathing heavily, surveying the wreckage around me. The shattered mirror didn't reflect the bruised and battered image I could only imagine. The adrenaline drained from my system, leaving behind waves of searing pain coursing through my body. Edith had been right about one thing: it hurt for a really long time. But I was still here. It was probably time to go to the hospital. No concert tonight, which, in hindsight, was perhaps a blessing. Explaining to the police later why I was screaming and destroying my bathroom could wait. Took me a long time to feel ready for a new phone. The memory of seeing her name pop up on caller ID still made me nauseous. I blocked every new number she used, but every call from her still gave me that same unsettling feeling. Thankfully, her attempts started becoming less frequent as time passed. Maybe she was finally finding peace with the void. Or perhaps she'd been spending her time learning to text from wherever she was. A few weeks ago, the texts began. "You were so unbelievably selfish to string me along, give me false hope, and then back out at the last moment. I pray silently every day that when you pass, you'll end up in the same void I'm in. Then I'll have eternity to repay you for what I dream about in every waking moment. Dying, no sign off, no talk to you later." She really needed to work on her texting etiquette. I laughed at the time, thinking, if the void is as vast as you make it sound, and you've already been wandering it alone for what feels like eternity, chances are we'll never cross paths anyway. That's the comforting thought I cling to. Still, there are mornings when I wake up from a nightmare that leaves me sinking into despair. Every nightmare now seems to follow a pattern. It starts like any other dream, and then, without warning, I'll turn a corner. Off in the distance, the dreamscape stretches into a dark, infinite void. At the edge of the void, where it meets the remnants of my dream, stands Edith. She stares at me with a penetrating gaze, a faint smile playing on her lips. She raises a hand and waves. For that brief moment, the scene feels unbearably vivid and real. The part one despise most about these nightmares is how my body betrays me. Occasionally, without meaning to, I find myself raising my hand and waving back. Sometimes, I wonder if we're allowed to take things with us into the afterlife. If so, I'd like to ask my loved ones to bury me with a hammer.